From keto to intermittent fasting and low carb to low fat, how do you know if a diet is worth it? One thing to be clear from here on out, there's no perfect diet. You should first consider your lifestyle and health to choose dietary solutions to best match your individual needs and circumstances. This is for two reasons. Firstly, to a large extent, nutrition is behavioral based. Despite this, many people first start by thinking about which diet is best and build their plan around that. There are some key themes that I'll touch on in a moment that may benefit you, but to start, you should first ask yourself, what are my current eating habits and lifestyle, and what diet strategy can best match that? Secondly, as you've seen these various diets, most diet structures are effective in producing weight loss. Once this is established, you can best match the diet structure that best fits your needs. Alright, that's enough of the backstory. Let's talk about low fat, low carb, keto, intermittent fasting, and high protein diets. A low fat diet is defined as having 20 to 35% of your diet consisting of fats. This diet structure has been supported by major health organizations due to a large evidence base, flexible macronutrient or macros, and does not limit certain foods. Fat is the most dense macronutrient at 9 calories per gram. It provides the most amount of energy in comparison to carbs and protein. For reference, protein and carbohydrates have less than half the content, both being 4 calories per gram. The logic behind the low-fat diet is twofold. Limiting this dense macronutrient will reduce the likelihood of overeating, and because fat is limited, both carbohydrates and protein are increased. A common theme in these diets is that increased levels of protein rather than the diet itself is a primary driver of weight loss success. A recent review analyzed 32 studies with a combined 54,000 participants with a minimum duration of 6 months that reduced fat content but kept the other macronutrients similar. The review found a modest but consistent reduction in body weight, body fat, and waist circumference. This demonstrates that simply decreasing fat content has a positive effect on weight loss due to less total energy intake being consumed. Low-carb diets, on the other hand, are technically classified as having under 45% of total carbohydrates. This is because the acceptable macronutrient distribution range, AMDR, is between 45 to 65%. However, a better definition of having no more than 40% of the diet coming from carbohydrates is classified as low-carb. This diet does not prohibit foods based on fat content, so success is largely attributed to the higher protein intake as well as flexibility in food choices. The majority of studies examining the low-carb diet are on obese or overweight subjects. This is important because this population has more energy to utilize, which means they can lose weight faster and spare more muscle. Studies comparing low carb to a control group show small increases favoring low carb diets. Ketogenic or keto diets are a variation of low carb diets where the total carbs are limited to either 50 grams or 10% of carbs per day, while keeping protein levels moderate and relying on fat to get most of the calories. Given the diet's very limited carbohydrate intake, ketones form as a result of amino acids being broken down into fuel. Ketones are substances that are made in your body when it is used to store fat for energy instead of using sugar. The ketones themselves are harmless and, contrary to popular belief, do not aid in satiation or diet success. Although this diet produces an altered state known as ketoacidosis, this process is harmless to the body. In regards to weight loss, the diet itself performs similarly to others when the calories consumed are matched. This goes against the common belief that ketosis plays a role itself in weight loss. The research does not support this claim and instead attributes the diet to its effectiveness in promoting a higher protein intake. When comparing keto diets to non-keto diets where all conditions such as calorie intake and exercise routine were controlled, keto diets do not show a fat loss advantage. A study comparing keto to high carb diets found that at 6 months, the keto diet had a slight weight loss advantage, but at 12 months, the high carb diet was shown to be superior, largely because it is easier to adhere to. Intermittent fasting is an umbrella term that categorizes 3 diet structures: alternate day fasting, whole day fasting, and time restrictive feeding. Alternate day fasting is comprised of 24 hours of fasting followed by a 24-hour feeding period. The rationale for this diet is that eating on the feeding days was often not enough to make up for the 24-hour fast, which produced a calorie deficit. Interestingly, this diet slightly outperformed calorie restriction after 6 months of unsupervised weight loss. Whole day fasting involves only a couple of 24-hour fasts throughout the week, with the other days being set at the individual maintenance calories. It's important to understand that although this method has been cited as an effective strategy for weight loss when compared to diets consuming the same amount of calories over 6 months, there is no difference between groups. Time restricted feeding is another form of intermittent fasting, but this method provides a specific daily feeding window for the day. For example, while any time can be given, a common window is between 3 to 8 p.m. Outside of this time, you would fast. One of the largest systematic reviews ever published comparing time-restricted feeding to continuous energy restriction found that both diets resulted in relatively the same outcome in terms of body composition. With this in mind, intermittent fasting does not result in better weight loss versus traditional calorie restriction, debunking several myths about its superiority. High-protein diets are generally defined as exceeding 25% of total calories per day and can be further classified as consuming between 1.2 to 1.6 kilograms per body weight per day. For reference, the recommended daily allowance of protein is 0.8 grams per gram of body weight per day, so that would be double. A high amount of literature examining high protein intakes has drawn a relative consensus that eating double the RDA of protein consistently outperformed controls who ate the RDA. The subject of protein and its impacts on body composition has merit for a separate video, so I'll keep this part brief. There does appear to be an upper limit where protein no longer provides additional benefit. Specifically, consuming triple the RDA, which is 2.4 grams per kilogram of body weight, did not preserve lean mass in one study. Furthermore, a one-year crossover trial study using experienced gym goers had participants consume either 3.3 or 2.5 of protein per kilogram of body weight per day and found no significant differences in body changes. This study also shows that eating a long-term, high-protein diet did not cause any adverse health effects as measured with clinical markers, including a complete metabolic panel and blood lipid profile. Taking this all in, low-fat, low-carb, and high-protein diets have all shown to be effective strategies for weight loss, while intermittent fasting and keto diets do not have the same outcome. Diets with high protein content consistently show to improve both muscle growth and fat loss regardless of the diet chosen. This is important to understand because if protein content is high enough, many different nutrition plans can be followed to great effect. No matter what eating habits you follow, understand that it's not the diet itself that is special, but rather that it produces a sustained calorie deficit that you can incorporate into your lifestyle.